Hello, my friends. My name is Darren, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better Way podcast. Today, I want to talk about how you measure your success. And this came to life for me when I was in a conversation with some professionals, and everyone was sharing some of their goals and the timeline of the goals that they set before themselves. And some people were sharing goals that they've accomplished weeks before, months before they actually had it written down for that to happen for them. And then some people were like, feeling a level of frustration because the date that they had set for their goal is long past. And of course, you have some people like myself, to be honest, that has set goals for something, and yet we still haven't gotten to where we want yet. But it made me think that even though you maybe reached your goal on time or before, whatever that goal is for you, or maybe you're still working toward that goal, how do you measure your success? What parameters do you set for yourself to allow yourself to stay on track and, more importantly, appreciate your process? You know, when I was trying to start this podcast, I just named a goal that really challenged me. That's this podcast. I did a season 1, and I had to keep season 1 on structure because it was with a radio station. So I had to have everything in on time so that they can do their thing, so they can release it on time, right? It was a contractual agreement. But now that I wanted to do season 2 for myself as an independent podcaster, I ran into a lot of hurdles, and none of the hurdles were an excuse to why I didn't produce the podcast, because my original goal was for the podcast to be released in January of 2024. I didn't release my first episode until July. I had set the goal, and I didn't achieve the goal. And one of the things that was happening to me as I was examining why I didn't release it in January, but 6 months later, I began to feel a sense of, can I just say, imposter syndrome? I began to think that maybe it really wasn't my calling. I began to think that the first season, although I produced maybe 20 plus episodes, maybe I was just, lucky in a good place. But and I began to put a lot of excuses onto why I didn't put out the episode or start the podcast in January. Excuse after excuse, I felt like a quitter. But you know what? You know what I had to remember? I had to remember this important thing. That it's not so much about where you finish, but it's also about the person that you become in the middle of you going, in the middle of you reaching, in the middle of you moving forward. So let me put a kickstand right here and just speak directly to you. If you look at something in your life that you have set a goal for, and maybe you reached your goal, I'm happy for you. Kudos. What's next for you? But maybe you were in a position like myself where you set a goal and you're still reaching for that goal. And every single day, it seems like there's something that comes up that keeps you or that is hindering you from reaching that goal. Let me ask you a question. How are you measuring your success? Because there's one thing that I do believe is that you have the power. We have the power to set the goal, set the standard for our own lives. And I have some wonderful friends that have podcasts that are completely crushing it. And I applaud them. But if I'm being honest, a part of me was like, why do they make it look so easy? Where do they find the time? How are they producing episode after episode? What am I doing wrong? Now listen to me. Let me make this clear. I'm not coveting anyone. No. I am definitely not jealous or have a jealous spirit. No. Because I was taught that if the Lord is blessing someone, you rejoice for them. Because that just means that the Lord is on your street. And at any given time, your blessing is on the way. So, I don't know how you feel when you don't reach your goal, when you are striving. But one of the things that I had to do was remove myself from the self-pity. So instead of me looking at them and saying, man, how and why and what are they doing differently, I put it right back on myself and I said, okay, all right, D, what do you need to do? Enough of the excuses. Yes, you got this going on. And yes, you got that going on. And yes, you can do better here. And yes, your time management can be better there. But what are you doing to put yourself in a position to launch your podcast? Now, see, maybe for you have goals as well, and you're watching the highlights of someone else's life as they produce or as they walk into a season that you know you're called to do too. And maybe you don't have resentment. No, we're not even going to use jealousy or resentment on this episode, but maybe you're feeling a certain kind of way because you're stuck and they seem to be moving. What are you going to do? How are you going to look at the person in the mirror and say, person? I got a buddy who talks in third person. He cracks me up, but how true is it? Person, what are you going to do? How are you going to fix this? What do you need to say to yourself to defeat everything in your head that's telling you that you can't? Because what you need is really inside of you. You just got to make the choice to make it happen. Maybe you want to be in real estate and you want to flip homes. Why can't you? Maybe there's a book that's sitting on top of your dome that's waiting to come out on some paper, but you don't write it. Why not? Maybe you want to go back to school and get that degree and you're watching somebody else study and do that and post here and share this and walk down the aisle with it. Why can't you do it? Maybe it's something that someone else is doing that you need to stop saying, oh my God, how are they doing it? And say, if they can do it, why can't I do it? So that's how I felt. I released my podcast thinking that I wasn't ready, and maybe I'm not, but I will guarantee you now I am going to work endlessly to get better at this thing every single day. Because see, I know that there's no perfect thing called, there's nothing perfect about the word perfect. The only perfect human being was Jesus Christ, right? So I don't worry about the thing being perfect at all. I don't worry about doing 4 and 5 edits. What you get, my friend, is what you get. But I will tell you this. Even though my goal for January was pushed back to July, I never stopped developing myself. I never stopped learning in the process. You see, I still showed up on social media putting out quotes about every single day. I still studied. I still read. I still watched my favorite podcasts. I still joined several speaker groups, several podcast groups. I still made my videos that I hope some of you all enjoy. See, what I was doing was, even though my goal was delayed from January to July, I never stopped developing. And like I said earlier, I was in the process of becoming. So maybe you, even though your goal has been delayed, even though your goal has been pushed back, you're in the process of becoming. And the only thing your goal needs from you to do is to say yes. Say yes to yourself. Stop waiting for it to be perfect. It would never be perfect because you would never be perfect. You're going to always be pushing. You're going to always be striving. You're going to always be doing something to develop yourself. Jim Rohn says this: if you work on your job, you'll make a really good living. But if you work on yourself, you'll make a fortune. Now see, when I first heard that quote, I was thinking a fortune. Oh my God, tons of money. But maybe the fortune is good health. Work on yourself. Maybe the fortune is you becoming a better person. Mental health. Maybe the fortune is you getting along with your kids and your spouse, or I don't know, a good friend. Work on yourself. Maybe your fortune is that and not just money. I have a quote that I'm going to read to you by Orson Swett. And he says, success is not measured by what you accomplish, but by the opposition you have encountered and the courage with which you have maintained the struggle against overwhelming odds. So my friends, how do you measure success? Sometimes the goal may be far-fetched. Les Brown says, reach for the moon, for if you miss it, you'll land amongst the stars. Set your goal, but be okay with adjusting your goal. Because just because you didn't reach the long-term goal, the short-term goal is this: you're developing, you're growing, you're becoming a better person every single time that you put time into yourself. How do you measure your success? Thank you very much.